Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going and creating the defend and heal abilities of the player. We're going to have the player be able to defeat the giant enemy crab and then encounter the boss and then handle the boss character. And how we're going to do that is first we're going to start with renaming Runaway to heal. As you know from the last lessons, I created 4 abilities. As you can see here, single attack, 3 strike attack, defend, and then run away. I have changed run away to heal, just because I didn't really necessarily see a point to run away as opposed to heal. Heal allows you to heal up maybe before like the boss fight. It's kind of like a choice. So we're going to be forced to have these fights in this game. You have to fight the giant enemy crab and you have to fight the boss, but you can heal. So that's a plus. Okay. So we have to change this, just instead of you chose to run away, you're going to say you chose to heal. Okay, so first we have to make the ability for the player to heal. So here we have it gets hit, but we're just going to make a new function and we're going to call it heal. So in this one we're going to call it heal, and I'm not going to pass in the value you want to heal because I'm going to generate that. No, I'm going to have you pass it in. So since we have the random generator in the other one, you can pass in the amount to heal. So int amount to heal. So I'm going to pass it in here. We're going to name this function or document this function with comments. Always good practice. And we're going to say heals the player with the amount to heal. And the amount to heal, the number amount to heal the player. So now here we're just going to say heal the player by adding the amount to heal to the player's health. So in that case we're going with health, our current health, we're going to equal it to health plus the amount to heal. So now we're adding our health there. Now we're just going to let the player know his new health value. So here we're going to write out to the console, we're going to write line, and we're going to say our name. So name has healed, and we're going to say health. So David has healed 6 health. You now have, I'm going to output the health, flourish, health remaining. So basically now we're writing out that, we want to personalize it. So David has healed, let's say 6 health. You now have 96 health remaining, so that it'll come out. So this is what we're going to do for heal. We're going to go over to the heal right here, and we're going to say heal the player a random amount. I'm going to say player.heal, and I copied and pasted the above here, random.next, and I just put that here, and that allows us to heal a random number between 1 and 15. It's not always guaranteed that you're going to heal great. You could only heal 1. You could heal multiple. I mean, it's up to you to tweak those values. If you want, you could always say that no matter what, heal does 50. In which case, if you get down to 20, you heal, you have 70. But in our case, I want to make it a little bit of random. So this says choose to defend, and I just made it heal, which is incorrect. I'm going to cut this with Control X and then Control V for paste, and we put that in the heal because it's in the wrong spot. All right, so you chose to defend. So how are we going to handle defending? So there's multiple ways you can do this, but the way I'm going to do it for this particular case is I'm going to make a Boolean value to switch if he is guarding. So basically just assume, the player's sitting there, hey, I'm coming after you. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I want you to guard. I'm guarding. And then the enemy attacks and all right, what's next? So basically I want to know, is the player guarding? Get set. I should have did the prop there to show you, but I forgot. So determines if the player is guarding. So by default, booleans are false. So by default, the player is not going to be guarding. So here, what happens when the player is guarding? First, I'm going to go over to the get hit function, and I want to say that I want to check if my player is guarding. So when I get hit and I am guarding, check if the player was guarding. So if is guarding equals true. So when you say equals, you can say, does the boolean is guarding equal true? So does this boolean on the left equal true? However, since this is a boolean, this technically is in the back end true or false. This is essentially the same as writing true equals true. So technically for booleans, you can just write the boolean, and if it's false, then it will fall out, and if it's true, like it's a little bit of a shorthand. If you want, there's nothing wrong with it. You could say equals true. And if you wanted to do it the opposite way, you could say equals false, or if you wanted to do shorthand, you could say is not true. So by saying not, if is guarding was false, then it would be true because it's the opposite, and then you would get it. In this case, I want to know if I'm guarding. Am I guarding? And then else, what do you do when, since true or false, I don't necessarily have to say an if else. I'm just going to say, if you're guarding, then do this. Else, you're not guarding, so you do this. When we're not guarding, we're going to get hit, and we're going to lose our health, and we're gonna write out that we get hit. So I'm going to hit Control X to cut, and then I'm going to paste that here. So if I'm guarding, I'm going to do something else. If I'm guarding, I'm just going to write out that the player guarded the attack. So here I'm going to write out console.writeLine. I'm going to say Dame guarded the blow and was unharmed. Yeah. So David guarded the blow and was unharmed. So is guarding, you managed to completely nullify the next attack. So better hope that you guarded a 15 attack instead of a 1 attack. And then in which case, once this if statement comes by, it writes out that you guarded it, and we completely missed the else because we were guarding, so therefore we're not guarding. It's not like we were not guarding, so you will not hit this. So you go here, then it's going to check if the player's health is less than 0. We did not change our health, so our health is not less than 0. So we skip this if statement and we continue. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen when you guard. You're going to avoid the blow. So now we're going to go back to our program and handle that for the player. And we're going to say set that the player is guarding. So here we're going to say that the player is guarding equals true. So now we're just saying that the player is in a state. So basically we're saying like, hey, the player's sitting there. Hey, right. And then it's like, hey, he chose to defend. The player is guarding. So now I'm just sitting there. The state now of the player is guarding equals true. I'm just sitting here defending. Yeah. So now when it comes down and the enemy attacks the player, it's going to go to this function where I say go to definition. I right clicked it and I said go to definition or F12. And we see that when we get hit, I say if the player's guarded, then we guarded the attack and we're unharmed. Last problem that I forgot to put in here is that once we guard, we set that to true. We never set it to false. So you're just permanently guarding and you'll never be hurt again. Even if you attack, you're just permanently guarding. And that's not good for a game because then you become invincible. So right after is guarding, after I write out that he guarded the blow, we say remove the guard. And then we can just say is guarding equals false. So we reset it back to false. So I'm guarding, I get hit, I blocked it, and now is guarding equals false, and I get back to ready to attack. Now I could guard again, or I can attack, or I can flurry attack. You know, I could do things of that nature. My suit's like, what are you doing? So let's try it out. So here, we have the great epic warrior David, and now I'm gonna go through a full game now, just trying to defeat the giant enemy crab. So first, I'm going to attack the giant enemy crab, and he was hit for 8 damage, and then I died with one hit of 1,669 damage. And the reason that is because I forgot to change that from the previous video that the enemy can attack extremely strong. I only want him to attack 1 through 5. Yeah, that giant enemy crab was boss levels. He's not supposed to be the boss. So it's not so epic warrior David, because I was pretty weak before. So I'm going to do a single attack. You chose to single attack the giant enemy crab. The giant enemy crab was hit for 12 damage. He now has 88 remaining. The not so epic warrior David was hit for 4 damage. You now have 96 health remaining. Now at this point, I have 96 health, and I'm like, oh, I want to heal. So I'm going to go heal. It's like, you chose to heal. The not so epic warrior David has healed 8 health, and I now have 104 health remaining. And then after that, after I healed, the giant enemy crab hit me for 4 damage, so now I have 100 health remaining. So what would I like to do? Well, I want to defend. So now I chose to defend, so I'm just sitting there blocking, and the not so epic warrior guarded the blow and was unharmed. What would you like to do? So in this case, I still have 100 health, but I'm going to do a 3-strike attack. Bah, bah, bah! So the crab is hurt, and then I was hit for 1 damage, so I have 99 health remaining. This crab is pretty weak, so I'm just going to continue beating it down. I have no fear, and the giant enemy crab is dead. So we have that good. Just one thing I want to do, it's literally not a problem, but I kind of think I should prevent overhealing. Why wouldn't you just in the beginning just heal, and all of a sudden you have 9,999 health, you're not gonna die. So in the heal function, I'm gonna right click and go to definition, or I could have just switched to the file because I have it here. I said heal equals heal plus the amount to heal. Now just to confirm, I'm going to show you this in 2 ways. One, we have an if statement here where we can say, I'm just going to write it out because I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to say if health is greater than 100, then set health to 100. So in this case, I say I healed it. So in this case, I'm like, hey, I spelled that wrong. So health is, let's say, 100 plus the amount to heal, which is 50. Now I have 150 health. Is 150 greater than 100? Yes. Then reset health back to the hard number of 100. So yes, I did heal past 100, but I'm just going to reset it back to 100. Just reset it back down, and I don't want to do 100. If this health was 90, it's not greater than 100, then I skip this if statement and just go here and continue. Therefore, I only have 90, which is all fine. However, this is a completely valid method, and normally I would do this. I just prefer to have less lines of code when you could do shortcuts or things. Now, there's this operator called I think it's ternary or ternary. I think it's ternary operator. And what that does is allows you to write a single line if-else statement inline in code. So what does that mean? Well, in here, I'm going to say if the health plus amount to heal is greater than 100, then if it's true, health equals health plus 100, else it's 100. And then just to make it a little bit more readable, oops, I missed. I'm going to put these here. So is this, and when you put in parentheses, it says like, do your Boolean evaluation around this set of code. If the health plus the amount to heal is greater than 100, Now this is the ternary operator where we're doing an inline if statement. Now the first thing after the question mark is what happens when this is true. If this is true, then health plus the amount to heal is that's what it is. So let's say 60 plus 10 equals together, and that's what health equals. Else, which is donated by the colons, it gets reset to 100. So this is the way I would prefer to do it. However, as I mentioned, you could 100% put that if statement. It's literally the same thing. It's just that this is a shorthand code of writing it, and the other one on a single line, as opposed to the other one in a statement. Now, when I say like this is the same thing, I prefer to have it as one line because I personally feel the code is cleaner and smaller with one lines of code. But not everybody might agree. They might want to be able to actually read it. Like, oh, it's more detailed if I write it down an if statement. The code's not going to be slower because you wrote this if statement one way or the other. It's just a personal preference. But as I might have mentioned before in other videos, if you're in a team and the whole team is using ternary operators, and then you're writing out if statement, it's going to make the code be inconsistent. So if the whole team is writing out if statements, write out if statements. The whole team's doing ternary, you do ternary. When you're starting out, I would just write the if statement because then you know for a fact, like, hey, if the health is going to be greater than 100, then just reset it to 100. I'm going to leave it here. It's going to do the same thing. And you'll see right when we start, if I come here and heal, I healed, and I have healed 8 health, and I now have 108 health remaining because I messed up on something. If the health is greater than 100, then it's 100, else, yeah. So I completely wrote it 100% wrong. If the health is greater than 100, then if that's true, then I want to reset to 100. Else, I want to set the health to the value that it was before. I probably made that really confusing, but we'll see here. For heal, so now you can see I healed 1 health, and you now have 100 health remaining. So even though I heal, I'm never getting better than 100 health. You can see I keep healing. I wonder if I'm ever going to get unlucky and heal less than 100. This guy's not hitting me hard enough to... I'm just curious now. Oh, there we go. Here, I only heal here 3 health. He hit me and I went to 98, so I only got up to 99. Because I healed to 99, so he hit me for 98. Yeah, cool. We are going to bring out the boss character now. So after all this happens, we finish this while loop. So let's go to the end of this while, which if we click there, we can go down and see. This is where, because this part is highlighted, this is where the while loop ends. And we're going to say here, first, we stopped this while loop because somebody died. So here we want to make sure it wasn't the player. So now we're going to check if the player was the one who died. So here I'm going to say, continue writing the code if the player is not dead. Then we're going to continue the game. Else, the player is dead. The player is dead. Let the user know the game is over. So here I'm just going to write line and say game over. But in the case that the player is not dead, because the player didn't die, we're going to go here and we're going to introduce the boss character. So now create the boss character. And here I'm going to create the boss. And I'm going to say boss equals new boss. Now this boss character we created over here. Boss is a class that inherits from enemy. So a boss is a type of enemy, but he's a different type. he's the boss instead of being a normal enemy. And his name by default is Big Boss, and he has a higher value of health. But he can still do the same things that an enemy can, which, you know, is it can being dying and getting hit and saying items. So now this boss, I created the boss, and now I want to do the whole entire game again with the boss character. So in this point we have this while loop. So if I shrink this while loop, it shrinks the code. It's all there inside the dot dot dot. You put your mouse over it, you can see kind of a little preview. And this just allows you to kind of like shrink, like, oh, I don't really care what happens in this while loop, I want to see what happens next. You can shrink it. But I'm shrinking it purely so I can copy the whole entire while loop and then paste it in here. So in here, whenever the enemy gets hit, it's going to be boss instead, and boss gets hit during the attacks. And then we're not looping while the boss is not dead. We're just, while the enemy's not dead, we're doing for the boss. And we probably should say that right at the screen about the enemy attack. So we're going to player name you've encountered, and then we're going to say boss name. So if you remember from the previous stuff I've said in this video series, is what I just did is 100% wrong. Like, technically the code's going to work. I'm going to show you how it works here in a second. When I kill the giant enemy crab. Okay. I chose something else. What did I hit? I accidentally hit space. So I hit the enemy crab. Hydrate time. Oh. Alright. The giant enemy crab was hit for 12. The giant enemy crab has died. I was hit for 3 damage even though the crab was dead. That's something, that's a bug that we need to fix because I didn't account for that. And then David, you have encountered a big boss. It's not necessarily proper English, but basically you have encountered big boss. What would you like to do? So now I'm going to do a single attack. Now big boss is hit for 6 damage and all the stuff continues. And I'm going to do this, and you can see here big boss was hit for multiple damage, and he has more health. He has 144 health. He has more health than the giant enemy crab, so he's going to be harder to kill. So you see, I hit him multiple times, and he still has 63 health remaining, and I still have 72. I'm going to increase the boss's character damage, but we're just going to keep going, and then eventually we're going to kill him. He's dead. The program's over. So first, I'm going to explain. We're going to fix the bug, and then I'm going to explain why this is bad. Which I'll leave you guys a little homework assignment while I'm doing this. Guess why what I did was bad, and why you should not do what I did. In terms of creating this boss character, like how this boss character is laid out. So here, when the player gets hit, have the enemy attack the player. Make sure the enemy is not dead. And then, so if the enemy, first enemy is dead, if he's not dead, then he can attack the player. Otherwise, he was dead before, and he was still attacking. So I'm just going to say, make sure he's not dead, because I could attack him up here for player hit. The enemy gets hit, he could be dead. So check if the enemy's dead before hitting him. Okay. So now we're back here. That fixes the first bug we encountered. Now the second issue on what is good practice or not. This portion right here is not good practice because I literally just copy and pasted the above code. We now have the exact same code in 2 separate places. As you kind of saw, he was still attacking with a crappy value, so I should make the enemy, the boss character, go up to like 50. He can do a lot more damage, but these values didn't change. Maybe I should say the boss character has a little bit more defense, so you do less damage to him. I have to change all these values, and if I want to change the name, everything's just duplicated. The code's unmaintainable this way. What we should do is write this whole entire game loop into a function to reuse the code. Typically the rule is if you ever write the same code in 2 different spots, put that code into a function. Therefore, you can call that function in those 2 spots. It's just a single line function, and then you have the single code being called in a single location that if you need to make any changes, it automatically affects every place that you call. So if you had the same code copy and pasted 500 times in your program and you needed to change a number, you would have to go 500 different places to change the code. If you made it to a function that all the single line of code was inside this function and you put that function every single spot, all that function is pointing to this one code. All the 500 pointing to this one spot. If you change this one thing, it automatically is reflected in all the code. Think of it kind of like if you have to patch something and you wrote it wrong, it might take you like 7 days to find every spot, change all the code, and test it to make sure it works. And then you have to release a patch that late, as opposed to you write the code in the function-wise, you change the one value, boom, instantly you're done. 30 seconds, you can release a patch, app is fixed, players are happy. It's just, the other one is just bad practice. It's going to affect you because of how long it takes to code it. It's going to cost money because of man hours and time, and it's just not good. You wanna don't ever duplicate code if you can avoid it. And if you can't avoid it, you probably wrote the code wrong. You probably should write it, like think about different ways to write it. So here in this case, I could make another class to hold it and just like name it like a game master or something, but just for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it inside the class program. So inside this function, which you see the function here, main, you can shrink the function here. I'm going to make another function that's private just to this program. No other function, no other class can access this function. And what I mean by that is the player class and the enemy class, they can't call the game function because that wouldn't really make sense. So I mean, it wouldn't be able to call this game loop because then all of a sudden like you might cause an infinite loop and things of that nature. So this function is just private to the program. And we're going to call this we're not going to return anything, we're going to call this the game loop. So in this game loop, we're going to pass in the enemy that we're going to be fighting in the current game loop. We're going to call it the enemy. And then we're going to pass in the random number generator that we're using to generate the random attacks. We're going to pass in the player that we're going to be using to generate the game loop. And I believe that is it for now. So I'm going to put in the comments over here the main game loop that allows the player to attack an enemy. So the enemy the player will attack. The random number generator we will use to generate random numbers, and this is the player that we are playing as. Okay, so in here for this loop, we're going to copy the part where the while loop here and the console saying we detected someone. So I'm going to go here and paste that in here. And first we're going to get errors and we're going to see what we got. So first, this is going to write out to the screen about the enemy attack. So it's going to say player name, you have encountered a, and I called it first enemy.name. So in this case, this enemy now is named enemy that I'm passing in. So enemy.name. So the enemy that I'm passing into this game loop is the name that we're going to be explaining, because I can pass in big boss or the giant enemy collab in here, and I want it to work for both. So I'm going to check, and since it's saying first, while the enemy is dead, while the enemy and player are not dead, repeat the playable cycle. And then we say what we're going to do. We determine the player's action, and then it's this enemy instead, enemy, enemy, and then we continue on, and all the code, because I used the same name, so like player, I named it the same here, so technically it's gonna work out. And then make sure the enemy is not dead, enemy. All right, cool. So now we can use that game loop inside of this function. So here, this first part, I'm just going to write to do the game loop. So this game loop is while I'm fighting the giant enemy crab. So here I'm going to say perform the battle game loop. I forgot to make this a static class, and I think that's will make it show. Yeah. Okay. So since this is a static function, it can only see other static functions inside this program class. So static means that you do not need to create an instance of program in order to use it. So then it would just be program, capital program, dot game loop allows you to do it. I would kind of avoid that right now. That wouldn't be necessarily an issue if I put it inside of a different file, but the difference, I'll have to explain static in a more advanced video, because it's a little more in-depth for what we're doing right now. But just know that in this case, because main was static, I have to call static on this guy as well. So now we're going to fill in the game loop now that it is static. The first, if we type in here, you can see the first thing is the enemy that we're passing in. So the first enemy is the enemy we're going to attack. We have our random generation number here, and our player that we've already defined is the player we're passing in. So this whole entire function right here, this function that we made here, is doing that whole entire loop where we can attack, single attack, defend, heal, and get attacked back all the way until one of them dies, then it leaves. Then the code comes here and says, hey, did the player die? Then game over. Else, we're going to continue here. We create the boss character, and we have to do this all over again. Well, as you can see now, we can say perform the game battle loop, and then instead of the first enemy, we're now fighting the boss. And then right there, we just wrote, like in this function now, you can see it's barely any lines. If the player is not dead, we fight the first enemy, we make the enemy, we fight the enemy. Is the player not dead? Then the boss comes up, we fight the boss. Now we can check if the player was the one who died, again, and then else. The player is dead, let the user know the game is over. And then, okay, so here's a thing that I was mentioning before, don't duplicate code. This is exactly the same. What if I wanted to change it to say different items? So in this case, I'm just going to write, to maintain consistency, a private static void function called game over, and in it we just write out the game's over. Writes out what happens when the game is over, and then now I can just do game over in this function. The game is over, and now it's duplicated in both spots. So now put semicolons in there. I can see it's going in the same spot. It's in this one spot. So now for game over here, if I change this to game over, no, now both codes, game over no, game over no. It's in both spots now as opposed to the single spot. So now we're checking if the player is dead. At this point, if you beat the giant enemy crab and you beat the boss, you won the game. The player won the game. So console.writeLine, congratulations. I'm gonna say your name because you deserved it, because we got customization. Congratulations, David, comma, you defeated all the enemies and saved the kingdom. But sadly, the princess is in another castle. And so the legend continues. But yeah, so that's the game loop. So one couple things I want to add to this game loop, however, is right now both enemies attack the same. So in game loop, I want to say, as I mentioned before, the attack that the enemy could do is 1 through 5. I'm going to say here as an int, the max attack power. And I'm going to add that to the parameter here. The max attack power the enemy has to attack the player. So now that gets passed in, and now over here, when I randomly choose between 1 and 5, it's going to be 1 and the max attack power. So now if I go back to this game loop, which now errors because I've added another parameter, so I need to have another parameter. As you can see, there's no argument that responds to the max attack power, which is the, when I type in here, you'll see it says this the main max attack power the enemy has to attack the player. So for the giant enemy crab, we said he only can attack to 5, but for the boss, I want him to be able to attack up to 50. And I want the max player, I also want to define, similar to that, the max max player attack power. And the same thing here, the max attack power the player has to attack. So I'm going to say that now for the single strike and for the multi-hit. He has a max amount that he can attack. Now, one thing I want to notice, it's not, you don't normally have your code blown up this big, but if you do find yourself having the point where you can scroll, you could go over here and hit enter and go to the next line, because all this code tends to work until semicolons are hit. Like, I could do this, this is still valid, this is still valid. It doesn't look right. You tend to want to have a little bit of a form to your code, so I'm not going to do that, but I mean, I'm going to do it for this one just so you guys can see here, so it's on the screen still, so I don't have to constantly scroll to the right, but you don't necessarily have to have it all in the same line. So if I come up here to the game loop, for the boss, I only want you to have the attack power of 10, but let's say for the giant enemy crab, you can attack up to 20, which is more than what I had it before. But at this point, we have a complete game where we can flow, and we're saying you come into this area, you go to attack, you give yourself a name, you find a giant enemy crab. You now go to attack the giant enemy crab, and you do battle with it, turn-based, back and forth, Pokemon style. Then the giant enemy crab dies. Then Big Boss comes out. When you fight Big Boss, you fight him. He's a little bit harder, and then once you beat him, you win the game or you die. So let's play it out and see what happens. All right. So this is gonna be Epic Warrior David. Let's hope I don't die now and I call myself an Epic Warrior. So I encountered a giant enemy attack. Well, of course I want to do the 3-strike attack. I'm going to do single attack. I'm going to defend. I took the blow and was fine. Now I'm going to heal because I want to make sure I'm healthy. And then we completely negated that attack because I healed for and so I healed for 1, but he did 2. I'm going down. I gotta heal more. All right, so I'm gonna attack more. I'm gonna 3-strike attack. I'm gonna do 3-strike attack multiple times. I'm doing pretty weak right now. All right, 65 health. I'm gonna do 1, and then so now giant enemy crab is dead, and Epic Warrior David has encountered Big Boss. And now what would you like to do? I'm gonna do a 3-strike attack. So Big Boss, oh, I got lucky with my hits. 28, 38, and 10. He's got 74 health left, but he hit me for 14 damage. Now I have 50 health. So I'm gonna defend and block his next blow. And I was unharmed, so now I'm gonna heal, and he's hit me for 16. So I'm going down here. I might lose. I need to do a single attack, and I need to heal more. So I only have 11 health. I don't know if I can heal because he can hit me higher. So I should have healed more during the giant enemy crab. Oh, but I got real lucky with my 3-strike attack. Here, if Big Boss was hit, he now has 31 remaining, and then I attacked for 14 and 28. So yeah, so that would have killed Big Boss. So Big Boss died on the second hit, and then a third hit, he was dead, and I hit him again because I was beating a dead horse. And it says, "Congratulations, Epic Warrior David. You defeated all the enemies and saved the kingdom. Sadly, the princess is in another castle." And then the game ends. So, as you can see, the game's fully working. If I died, it would have said game over. However, which actually got really close. You now have 11 health remaining. It was a pretty hard fight. However, there is one last bug that I can see here that we encountered through playtesting, which is obviously you should be testing your game. That once I killed him in the multi-hit, I was able to hit him again while he was dead. So we're just going to fix that real quick, and that would be in the enemy gets hit function, because he's getting hit. No, inside the game loop. When you are doing the for loop here to attack the enemy, we're just going to say here, make sure the enemy is not dead. If enemy is dead, the enemy is not dead, then you hit the enemy. Because when you're looping through, we won't want to hit the enemy. So if we kill the enemy the first hit, then the second time we loop through, the enemy is dead, and the third time we loop through, he's not dead. So another way to do it, just saying for loops, you could break out of a for loop, because if this was hitting 300 times and the enemy died on the second hit, it would still run 298 times, because and just check, like, is he dead? Yeah, he's dead. He's dead. Yeah. So he's just not doing anything. So actually, a better way to do this is to check. We're gonna hit the enemy, because we know for the first time, if we got here, we're hitting the enemy. Like the first time, we know that's happening. And then make sure the enemy is not there. Now we're gonna check if the enemy is dead. So if the enemy is dead, then we break out of the for loop. Now, something like this, writing the code like this, actually does affect the performance of the code. Because if this was 3,000 hits and he died on the second one, this isn't 3,000. I don't even know what this is. 100,000. So this is 300 million. So if I killed him on the first hit, I would still have to do 299,999,999 more iterations of this loop and process it to check that he's not hitting it. In this case, the way I have it written right now, he kills him on the first hit, checks that the enemy is dead, and then breaks out of this for loop, and it only ran once, and it does not run the other 2 million, etc., etc. And then you save all that processing power. It makes the game faster. When you're making like serious games with like actual graphics, let's say through Unity, if you ran something 3 million times per frame in a 60 FPS game, you would just pretty much freeze the game. It would just, because it's like every single frame where it has to draw like frame. It would have to be like, do 3 million calculations, 3 million calculations, 3 million calculations, and it would take too long. It would not be good. So this, I'm not going to run it because the chances of me doing a multi-hit attack when he's near dead is going to be kind of hard again. Actually, I might be able to show that. It's just this fixes the glitch. Actually, since I didn't change the 3 million, it actually can show this. So this is running 3 million times, but as you can see, yeah, actually did it perfectly. So I'm running it 3 million times, but as you can see, in the process of hitting him for the one multi-attack of 3 million, the moment he died, it says giant enemy crab has died. It did not multi-hit him 2 million times again. it now brought me the big boss. In which case I can hit big boss as many times as I want. Big boss died, and I won. So I'm going to change this back to 3 because the attack is supposed to be 3. Alright, and that ends today's video where I made the game loop, etc. There's 2 videos left in this tutorial series. The next one I'm going to introduce errors and show how to protect against errors and to debug your code. Right now, because of the way I've been writing the code and I know how to write code, I haven't really ran into any errors that stop the code from running. But there are ways that you can encounter codes and you need to you can encounter errors and you need to know how to handle those errors when you're coding by debugging it and stepping through and finding out exactly what parts are breaking. So Visual Studio has beautiful debug tools to help you figure out where the code has gone wrong and not working the way you expected. So I'm going to be showing you that in the next video. And then in the video after that, we're going to be finishing this off with a list and a for each loop. And what we're doing with lists, which lists/arrays, I'm just going to show a way to collect a huge amount of an unknown number list. So everything so far we've been doing is like hard-coded, like 3. Like we're doing this 3 times. But what if you wanted to do it for how many items were in a list? Let's say if you had an attack list of 40 or 60. You don't know. You just want to loop through the list. We're going to keep a history of every single attack that happens. And then when the game ends, we're going to display the history of the game. So it's like, oh, I attacked you, you attacked me, and then I attacked you and then died. It's like, all right, the game's over. What happened was the player attacked him, you attacked him, he attacked back, and you attacked him. It'll basically be like a replay system. Let's think of this as a really archaic Call of Duty kill cam, where if it's tracking your movements, when you die, it replays back what happened. So we're going to create that array containing all the history of your attacks. We'll outprint that to the screen, and that'll teach you arrays and lists and the for each loop, which is the last major thing, in my opinion, that you need to know in C#. And then that will be it for the general overview of learning C#. With this, you should be pretty decent to write basic C# programs. But there's going to be more intermediate subjects, which I will do in the next video series. So thank you for watching today, and I'll see you next time for debugging errors in your code.